Peter, are we ready?
Yeah.
And Peter, you should have permission to record. I don't know if you want to on your end.
Right. So what do? Just press that record button.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. There you go.
Right. Let's see. It's not blue.
What's not blue?
Like the go live button isn't.
It's grayed out.
It's grayed out.
Okay, go back to that that Zoom page that you were on, where you hit that button.
Oh, it looks like. Oh, wait, here we go. There it is.
Okay.
All right, go live. Please, sweet Jesus, just work. I think it said you're live.
Great. Then we should be live. Yeah, we're live.
Okay. Yay. Yay. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. Hi, friends.
Hey, everybody.
I think we did it. Always a miracle.
Thanks for y'all's patience
It's
this
always
morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are.
I'm so excited about this talk today because it's, Peter, what you said.
Then we should be live. Yeah, we're live.
Oops, here we go. Peter, what you said in the comments.
Yay!
Seriously.
Yay, hold on, let me pull it up real quick. Hi, friends.
Hey.
I think it's just going to be the way I start shows.
Yeah.
I think that's just going to be my thing.
It's like your intro music.
It's just going to be like, it's just just the way I roll. It's just the way I roll. But what I wanted to say was, Peter, even what you just said just in the Facebook thread just now around how we sometimes find ourselves in these financial messes. And I think everyone can relate to that we find ourselves in this system that's really kind of complicated and hard to figure out. And then we end up, it's like we put Band-Aids. We just keep going, keep putting more and more Band-Aids on this thing, and it gets bigger and bigger until it busts. And I think that that's what happened for us over here, and what's happening for a lot of people is just we're trying to sort out how to exist and how to work within a system, or even just step out of the system, which is really what we want to get into today. And I'm just really grateful that you kind of came into our lives and into this mix, because we hopped on a call earlier this week, and even just for 40 minutes, my head was just blown. And I think that that's what's happening to so many people right now in this journey for the last year. Is it's like we think we get something, and then you open up another door, and then it just keeps going and going and going. And it's also one of the blessings of these times that we really are learning how, learning never ends. And that's what we want really this call to be about, is an opportunity for us to really learn about our history, about how we got here. And Peter's been doing just so much incredible research. And I was so inspired by your heart as well, and your willingness to just share so freely, really what sounds like some deep understanding and discoveries around how the world is and how we got to be here. So thanks for this. And you guys all know Justin and Dani, and yeah, that's kind of, we're just so excited to be here having this conversation. It's a really important one. And then I do want to say I wanted to put it on my channel today, because I think that a lot of people that are kind of from my old life, this information for me was so huge. And so I wanted to kind of put it out there in a safe space to say, like, look, this is the beginning of how we're breaking free. And in the yoga prayers and in the community, we always say, may all beings everywhere be happy and free. And so this is a huge part of that, this aspect of freedom that we really want to start to look at. So thank you for bearing with us. Sometimes it might be a little bit sad to hear some of this history. It might be, might make you a little bit mad. It might make you elated. It might bring up all the emotions, but that's a part of this as well. So welcome.
Yeah, beautifully said, Marie. Thanks for that introduction. And just wanted to add on to, part of what we're going through right now is relearning how to take responsibility for our whole self, every bit of our aspect, and not relying on some external source to sort of provide for us and give us the means of where we need to go and tell us what we can and can't do. And that's what sovereignty is all about, is really taking that ownership and taking that responsibility, because God is within. God is within, and so by taking ownership of this body and this external self, we can really step forward into that truly. So this is a beautiful way to take ownership of that. And Peter's, so we're so lucky to have you here today to help guide us through that. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. I'm very happy to be here. And can everybody hear me fine? Yes?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. What I will touch on just what Marie was saying before about like how you're going to feel about a lot of the information, because the more that I actually looked into it, the more emotions that I actually got from all of these different areas. And some of it I found like extremely upsetting. To find out, some of it gave you answers and think, right, so now I know where I went wrong, or now I know why I was stuck in such a place. But then other things that you found out I think are so barbaric, the way that they've actually set up a system basically for you to fail. That which is really what it is. It's set up for you to fail, and there's only one thing that they want to do, and that's to take as much from you as they possibly can. And that's all it is to it. Now, parts of it are really simple and parts of it are massively complicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go backwards, and I'm going to show you sort of like where it started right from the very beginning. And then also I'm going to show you how it actually moved, let's call it the modern times of what we're in now. So how it sort of like transformed from, let's say, like the Middle Ages, right? So like you're talking about like, 1300s, which probably seems insane, but this is really where the basis comes from. Even before that, you're talking about Roman times, as in Julius Caesar times, where the Roman Empire was actually set up and it was taken over by the Holy Roman Empire. And then from there moved into the Middle Ages, where they really started to concrete this system, and the going over to the United States, where they actually really tied these three centers together to create what we call, what it really is called the UCC, which is the Uniform Commercial Code, right? Now, the Uniform Commercial Code is what everybody operates on. The whole world operates on that code, and that is the strongest and most powerful law in the world. Now, the reason why I came across this is because I was looking for freedom, I was looking for help. And a lot of what you hear about is common law, especially in England, where I'm come from. Then you have what they call the Magna Carta, which is where the United States Constitution took their lead from the Magna Carta, which was written in 1215. And under that charter, people think that we have common law, and we have no law. There is no law. In the United States, I know a lot of people like stand by, the Constitution, and whenever they say, well, I stand under the Constitution, I'm protected by the Constitution, and you're not. Well, if you ever get into a circumstance where you have to attend a law court and you'll go into the law, if you say, like, I'm under my Constitution, you will be put into contempt by the judge very quickly, because they have no Constitution. You are not under any protection whatsoever. Every single court in the whole of the world, but you'll really see it in the United States and in England, is all a military court. Everything is under the military. We are all under martial law and have been for decades. Okay, so that can sounds quite shocking to a lot of people, but that is the truth of the matter. That is how it's been set up. Now, if you think about it, I don't know if anyone's ever been to court, but you must have seen a lot of pictures sort of and videos recently, especially with all the comings and goings of the election and everything, and you'll see the United States flag, and it always has a gold trim around it. Now, there's a lot of sort of like rumors about what it's for, but it is a military flag. That is what it is for. So you have, let's just talk about Donald Trump, because rather than anyone else. So when he was like commander-in-chief, then he was like the leader of all of the military forces in the United States, and he would always stand next to a military flag, and that had the gold braid around the flag. That signifies a military flag. Okay, it's got nothing to do with like Queens or England or anything like that, but it is military. So you have no protection from the Constitution or anything else. And if it's in England or anywhere else, you have no protection from common law. And I have something I want to show you. This is my, well, it's not my birth certificate, because you don't get a birth certificate. It's very scruffy. It's been around a lot of different places for a lot of years. It's about the same age as I am. So we say it a little bit scruffy. But what I want to read the top bit for you, and I'll show you it, because everyone thinks you get a birth certificate, and you don't get a birth certificate. This states certified copy of an entry of birth. That's all it is. It's a certified copy of an entry of birth. Now, what happens is, if you look, I don't know if you can see that, where it says certified copy of an entry of birth. Sorry, it's a bit scruffy. I always get wrong for like having scruffy birth certificate. Janine's kept hers nice and neat and tidy. But this here, when you get born, or your parents or your mother gives birth to you, is exactly where it starts nowadays, modern times, and I'm talking about, let's say for the last 100 years. Okay, so you're inside your mother, right? You're in water, aren't you? So that is what they class everyone as. You were in water, and then when you were birthed, right, you come through the birthing canal. Okay, so if you listen to what I'm saying, everything is to do with water, everything is to do with maritime. And this is the way that their minds work. So you have to try and get onto the same kind of thinking of these people, which are like satanic people. So they're looking at your birth coming from water, and when they actually come into, the hospital, the person who is there, who is helping give birth, is a doctor or a docker, to actually bring you into the dock. So now you were a vessel, and you were docked. Now, this is the way that you were thought of and you were treated, that you are actually a moving object or a vessel. That, right? Once you were actually born, you get given this copy of your entry of birth, but they create what is called a live birth certificate. Now, the live birth certificate, this is what creates your trust, your CVQ or CISTQV trust. And it is a trust that's made at the moment of birth. And that live birth certificate, no matter where you are in the world, and I've seen copies of it, I'm telling you, I swear to it, the Queen of England signs all of them. They all get sent to her, and she signs them all. Now, what happens is, on this trust, everybody thinks that you get a national insurance number when you're going to go and start work. You get it immediately. It gets joined with your birth certificate. Your birth certificate has a number. This one has a number. Okay, you can see the number along there, and you get your national insurance number, and they get combined together, and it makes a trust, and they send it off. Those numbers, they create what's called a QSIP number. So it creates a tradable bond, and it gets put onto the New York Stock Exchange. Now, that is when you were born. Now, whatever rumors that you may have heard, the truth is you get £1 of gold put into your trust for every pound of your birth. So if you're like an £8 baby, then there will be £8 of gold, the value of that gold, put into that trust, and then that gets registered on the New York Stock Exchange. And that is how it starts. That is the beginning of the trust. Okay, the CISTQV trust. The way that they actually look at it the you yourself, then what they do is when they create the trust, they capitalize your name. So on the birth certificate, all it written in there, all right, if you look at that there, okay, it just says Peter there, right? That's in this, like, written down normally, higher and lower case. What they do is they capitalize your entire name and they add a surname. So that just said Peter, so they will add a surname, Peter Wilson. And when they add the surname, I don't know if you look at like ancient Latin, and it's either called subrepo or surname, and it means to creep up from below. Bit weird, but that's what it means, to creep up from below, and that's what a surname means. And they add it on and capitalize it, and it turns it into a corporation. Now, once you've been made into a corporation, they're going to use that corporation, which a lot of people will know is called the straw man, and they will use that to interact with themselves. Now, what I mean by with themselves, I'm talking about the governments, because everybody thinks we have a government. We have no government. Wherever you are in the world, you have no government. The UK government is a private limited company or a corporation. The same as the United States government, it is a corporation. Now, by law, a corporation cannot deal with a live creature of the creation, the creator, a creation like us. They can't do it. By law, they can only deal with another corporation. So they have turned you, or your name, I should say, into a corporation. And then they spend all of the time you were alive trying to trick you to act as if you are that corporation. So when you go to, say, for instance, you're dealing with the IRS or the HMRC, if it's in the UK, Her Majesty's Revenue Collection Service, again, everyone thinks it's a government department. The IRS is part of the United States government. It's not. It's a private corporation, completely separate from the United States government. And the HMRC in the UK is a private corporation, completely separate to the private corporation of the UK government. Now, all of them collect. Now, the IRS, funnily enough, collect for the HMRC, and it all gets sent to the IRS, even the HMRC, and it's all collected, but it's sent to the IRS, and it's sent to the IRS corporation, which is registered in Puerto Rico. It's not even registered in the United States. So all of the money around the world, wherever we are, all gets collected by the IRS, which exists everywhere. It's not just an American thing. It's all collected, like, you know, and passed through that, say for England in the HMRC, it gets sent to the IRS, which is in Puerto Rico, which is getting more and more complicated by the second. So all of the money is collected there, all of the tax, which is completely illegal, by the way. You're not allowed to pay tax. I'll explain that in a second. But then that money, all of that collection, is then sent to the Philippine Islands. And the Philippine Islands is owned by the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, wherever she is at the minute. She's hiding. All right. But anyway, whatever, the crown, basically the crown. So whoever would be in charge of that, which is also part of the Vatican, they're tied together completely. And I'll explain that on the history, and that'll show you how it happens and why it happens. It's not something that they just decided one day. You know, this is going back literally right into the Middle Ages. In fact, before, thousands of years. And it's just grown and grown and grown. And it's just the same as like communications. You know, it starts off where, you know, by fires on top of trees, and then like your horses running together, and then it gets more complicated till you have telephones and everything, and then we have like a smartphone. Right, it's got more like technical as it goes through, and it's exactly the same on this system. But that is where the system that we are now, you are controlled and owned completely, not just by the Vatican or the Crown, right, but also by whoever has bought you, and they've literally bought you on the stock exchange as well. Now, that bond that was created, just to say it was £8 of gold, and it's traded on the stock exchange in New York, which is bought mainly by the Chinese, believe it or not. So the Chinese are the biggest investors in these human bonds on the New York Stock Exchange. So I know it just seems to be getting crazier and crazier, but this, you know, it takes a long time to get to find this stuff out. And then the more you find out, you just think, no, this is insane. But it is also, unfortunately, very true. Now we can stop them using our straw man, and you can claim it back to claim freedom and protection. Parts of it are very simple, and parts of it have got to be learned, right? As in like language on what to do, what to say, and definitely what not to say. And you have to learn like a different language and be very careful on how you listen to what other people are saying to you as well, because the whole thing is like a con. It's like some kind of scam, and they're trying to trick you all the time to say certain things which are going to give them jurisdiction over you. Because what they need to do is they can't deal with you as a living creature of flesh and blood. So we always got to think of yourself as the creation derived from the word of God. That's what you have to think of yourself as all the time. Now they want to trick you to forget that and say that you are your corporation, and which sometimes, if you haven't ever known about it, all they're going to say, like in my case, is say, are you Peter Wilson? They say it the same way as it sounds like my name, and if I say yes I am, then I'm admitting that I am then my corporation, which sounds exactly the same, but it's on full capitals. And that's how they trick you. And if it was in a law situation, a court situation, they've actually turned around now and made me the trustee of my the trust. And as the trustee of my trust, now that if I was in a court situation, I am responsible for anything that happens to that corporation name. Be it, and generally all they want is commerce. It's all about commerce. It's all about them taking money from me or from my corporation. Now, if they do fine me, for instance, whatever it would be, let's go to a basic one of a parking ticket, and they fine me, what happens is they get the money, they get paid straight away out of the CQV trust. They get it straight away. But they do what they call a double dip, and they want you as a living creature to also pay. So they want double, right? Now, I'll explain a little bit about loans, bank loans, car loans or whatever, and also about mortgages, which is the biggest scam in the world when it comes to finance, and all of it, where it all comes from. It's all paid for already through your trust. Okay, so we have to try and get our heads around the fact that everything that you can actually see, all of the roads that you're driving on, you already own them, and you can drive on them freely because you or your trust paid for them. All of the utilities that you're using, like water and electricity, gas or whatever it would be, and they're asking you for a bill, they've already been paid. You own that gas, you own that electricity, you own the water. It's already been paid through your trust. All they're trying to do is double dip and take it again. Okay, so I'll show you how you can actually send them a letter and tell them that you already own it to stop having to pay those bills. I'm not saying you won't get an argument because they're not going to like it, but it's the same as all of the authorities. It's only the higher up people, say the CEO of your water company, and they know. Okay, so when it gets through to them, and they can't go any further, but you're going to deal with the person on the phone who's trying to get you to pay some money because they all get commission. You have to never speak to them on the phone, by the way. That's just an example, but you know, you have to be able to deal with them with authority and with courage, knowing that this is the case. And it takes a lot to get through your head, because like saying that, like, you know, it's quite scary. You think, well, you have to be authoritative and to speak to these people who are always trying to gain authority over you. Do you know what I mean? They're always trying to be authoritative, but only because they want money. Okay, so hang on 2 seconds. Now I have some forms that I'm gonna put links on. I've just got a website. I've just literally put it up today, so it's not working properly. I have no idea how to get it sorted properly yet, but I know I can put links to the form. Now you need to get what they call a UCC1 financial statement, a UCC1 financial statement and an addendum. Now, what I'll do is when I actually put it on the site, which I'm going to do today, and I'll have it filled in so you can see how to fill it in. And all you have to do is replace my details with your details. And I'll even get you to send it off to me so I can check it to see that you've filled it in correctly, because some words need to be placed in the form to make it legally binding. And I'll also put a link in where you can send it. Now, it doesn't matter where you live on the form. This is the first place that you go. The first thing that you do is to fill in. This is the most important form of all the forms I can tell you about. And this is also the proof that this trust exists, and also the proof that the UCC exists and that it is the most powerful law in the world. If it didn't exist, there wouldn't be a UCC form to complete to claim your straw man back, although it's not called a straw man in their eyes. There wouldn't be a form to claim it back, to claim control of your legal fiction. That is the correct name. There wouldn't be a form to do that, and there is. There's also an office to send it to in Washington, D.C., because that's where the center is, Washington, D.C., and I'll give you the link to send it off to. So again, if there wasn't a UCC law and you could not claim this back and that trust did not belong to you, then there wouldn't be a form to fill in and there wouldn't be an office to send it to. Does that make sense? It just, I mean, because a lot of people, when you tell them, they just went, that's not true. It can't be true, you know. But at the end of the day, it's very hard to accept that since the day you've been born, you were a slave, you know. And this created a slave. Now, what you might find shocking as well for parents. Now, I'm going to tell you as well how you can protect your children and how you can take them off of the system the same way as you take yourself off the system. You can protect them, okay? But if you as a parent and you know your children are born, they don't give you a choice and explain anything. A lot of hospitals, if they go in and when they give birth in a hospital, they're not even let you out of the hospital until you've signed the register. All right. So what you're doing is you're actually getting put down on the register as the informant, you know, like a police informant. You've just given them information on a criminal, but what you're doing is you're actually informing them that there is now a new existence or a new child to actually make money from. So you fill in the birth certificate, all right, but that also gives away the control of your children. As soon as you've signed that birth certificate, the state now have ward of your children and they can come and take them off you at any time. Now, we were just discussing this week, yesterday, last night when we was talking, and there was the BB is the woman who I actually learned a lot of this information from. And she was doing a seminar. She does everything online now, as everyone's doing now. But she, you know, before this 2020 thing, she went around and she did seminars and actually explained it. And what she was doing was she was talking about the birth certificate and the fact that the birth certificate gives the government ownership of your children. So this webinar, seminar that she was giving, there was a policeman in the audience that was listening. Now, he listened very carefully, and he went to see her after she'd finished the actual seminar, and he'd said, what you've said about the birth certificate giving the state ownership of the children is 100% true. He had recently been on a case where a mother had been reported as not looking after the children well enough, which, you know, it happens for no reason sometimes. So even though he didn't like it, he had to go and take the children. So he's went with the other child protection officers and the police officers to actually take the children. So when they've got, there was 3 children. 2 of them had birth certificates. The 3rd one didn't have a birth certificate. She didn't register the child's birth. So they could only take 2 of the children. They could only take the 2. It's upsetting, but they could only take the 2 that had the birth certificate. The 3rd one they couldn't touch legally. They had to leave it. So again, and this is what a policeman was saying, it's absolutely true what you're saying. There's the fact and there's the proof. Again, the trust exists, that the state own your children and own you. All right, because once they've actually got the wardship of you, that is you right the way through, working right up until your own death as well. Okay, so the way, like I've said, to do it, when you want to claim back ownership or at least control of your capitalized name, which makes you the corporation, you have got to turn yourself into a creditor. So the form, and this is the actual form. All right, I'm not going to go like through it with you, but on the first part of it, it actually says the debtor's name, and underneath it says the creditor's name. Now, the creditor, you have to put yourself in as the creditor with your higher lowercase name, and on the debtor's name, you have to put that in full capitals because that's the corporation. But I'll explain that properly, and I'll put it up on the website, and I'll have people, I'll even check it for them so they can see they've done it correctly and filled the right things in. But you can also add your children's names so that they can also become creditors, right? So you take control of their legal fiction as well. So you can, what's the way of putting it? You can rescue them, if you put it that way. So you actually can help and get your children back and protect your children. Now, if it's coming to newborn, I did get like a question saying if it was newborn children, I would try my best not to even register the birth. There is no law. There is no law that says you have to register your child's birth. Now, they can threaten you and they can say, you know, you're going to get fined. But I do personally know people who have actually got children and they've got them into school and they haven't got a birth certificate. They have them in the doctors. They've never got a birth certificate, and they've even got them passports to go abroad and without a birth certificate. There is no law that says that you have to register the birth of a child. It's just a way of them controlling you and making money. Okay, but would you know that is a fact, and you can just ask. So, can you tell me the law that says you have to put my child down as registered? Okay, and this is what we'll talk about a lot today, because if we look back at the my birth certificate, right, where it actually says there, right, Birth and Death Registration Act. It's an act. Right there, whatever that says, 1953. It is an act. It is not a law. Okay, and there's a huge difference here, especially when you actually claim that you were a creditor and you were not a debtor. And that is the most important thing, and that is something that you have to tell everybody, that, you know, once you've actually got yourself established and do the form and you get it sent back, because they return it to you, they accept it and acknowledge it and return it to you. It's not just something you're going to send off and not hear anything about. It gets accepted and they send it back, right? So they acknowledge the fact that you are a creditor and not a debtor. It is a legal substance. It's not make-believe, right? It's not like saying, oh, I am a free man on the land, I am under common law, which is a concept that some people try and get away with and say, oh, I'm fully under common law, I'm not under your acts, I'm not under this jurisdiction. They're not under common law anyway. We're all under the UCC. So it doesn't work. We have to use the UCC to make sure that we are 100% legal in their eyes. And by doing that, you can use some common laws against them and to protect yourself. But it can only be done with the UCC. You can't just run around without claiming your straw man or your legal fiction and say, oh, I'm under common law, you can't harm me, because it doesn't work. All right, you're going to end up in prison by the UCC, and they'll chase you down with that. Okay. Now, I got a question asking about signatures. So I've actually, is there a way for me to share? Can I share the screen on here?
Yeah, let me give you permission to do that.
Right, because I have something that I've written out here. Okay, let's go back to Zoom. And if I just click this button, will that share the screen?
Try it out and see if that works.
Host disabled participants sharing.
Okay.
Can't do it.
So what I'm gonna have to do is make you the host.
Okay. Right, so it says there, so let's try it again. That one there. And if I share. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
All right. So whatever is written at the top, any contract, okay, you sign like this. By order of, and then there's your legal fiction and copyright sign. By, higher lowercase, that is your autograph, and it is in red. It's red. Always blue, possibly, but red, definitely. Okay, never in black. Authorized representative. Okay, so whatever the contract, blah, 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 by order of, full caps, copyright it by, in red, your Peter Wilson, copyright it, authorized representative. That is saying you are an authorized representative. You are a live, living creature by the creator, derived from the word of God, and you are the representative of the corporation, Peter Wilson. Okay, now that stops you being tied to any contract you don't want to be tied to. So you sign everything like that. This is how you should re-sign your bank accounts. So I would go to my bank account and I would ask for them for the signature page where you opened your bank account. And you would tell them that you want to re-sign your bank account. And if you re-sign your bank account exactly as it's written out there, by order of, with your name in capitals, copyright it. I'll tell you how to do that in a second. And then higher lowercase in red, and that's your actual signature. But it's not your signature, it's your autograph. Okay, it's your autograph. Authorized representative. And if you do that on your bank account, no one is allowed to enter your bank account and take money out of your bank account. No one. We're back there. Is that back to normal? Okay. So if you sign anything you're asked to sign, a parking ticket, a speeding ticket, anything like that, sign it like that. And also, like say, go to your bank account and ask them that you want to re-sign it, and have a look at how it was signed. And they're going to ask you why, and just say, oh, tell them that you've been studying transaction and banking law, and that you found out that this is how you should actually protect yourself by signing it like this. And then change your signature to that. And then that's going to protect your bank account, and it protects you from any future contract. So anything that you ever want to sign or somebody asks you to sign, because they're always asking you to sign, And if you sign it like that, then it protects you from any contract, because there's always a contract hidden in the background whenever anyone's asking for something. And by not arguing against it in the UCC, then you've contracted to them. This is where it falls apart when you have common law. On common law, on a contract, you have to have two parties, and they both have to give substance to the, or value, for instance, to the contract. They both have to know about it. They both have to agree to it, and then they both join it together. That is a contract under common law. Under the UCC, which is what we're all run on, if you don't argue and say, I do not consent, I am not part of this contract, your silence is acquiescence. Your silence accepts that you were in the contract, but you didn't know. That's it, you know what I mean? So even though you don't know, and obviously if you don't know, you stay silent on the subject, you get contracted. And this happens a lot with, again, I was talking just last night on a live Zoom call, exactly the same as this. And it was a woman, I think she was from France. She had like that type of accent. And they're in lockdown, a very strict lockdown. And for whatever reason, the police came banging on the door. And you've got to always remember this: if you're ever getting any kind of visit or interaction with the police, all they want is commerce. It's just commerce. They need to get commission. So if they get a fine from you, they get commission. All right. So they're all police forces are all private limited companies. They're not a police there. They're not, you know, a lot of them that they swear an oath, and in the UK, they're supposed to swear an oath to the Queen to uphold human rights and protect the people. All right. They don't do that at all. I've witnessed it for years and years and years. They abuse the people. But the reality is that they are under the UCC, and all they are there for is to have commerce with you. They want to do business with you. So by doing that, they're trying to get the money off you. So these policemen, and she didn't know anything. The unfortunate thing is, if you're not expecting anyone and you don't know anything that's going on, and you open the door, as soon as you've opened the door, you've contracted with them under the UCC. And it's hard to break that contract then. You know, people think you have to sign something to have a legal binding contract, and you don't. Literally, you just have to open that door to say they're knocking on it, and they don't know why. She still doesn't know why they were knocking on the door. She was like, they were screaming that they were going to arrest them, and that you know, they suspected them of some crime. Which again, if you haven't harmed anyone, in reality, if you haven't stolen anything from somebody, then there is no crime. For a crime, there has to be a victim of either harm or loss. That is a crime. That is something that you have to pay for. You know, if you've stolen from someone, you have to pay for it. Or if you've harmed someone, you have to pay for it under God's law, or under common law. But all they want is to actually fine you and have commerce, because they get a commission on that. That's it. That's all it is about. Now, luckily, they didn't actually allow them to step onto the threshold. So that, you know, they eventually got the door closed, and because she had been talking with us, she obviously, once the shock had, you know, they've come to the door like that, never expected it. So then they're talking, then saying, look, you know, we do not consent. You know, we are under UCC 1-308. All rights are reserved. We're not going to contract with you. There is no joinder here. We're not under contract. And it knocked them off their balance, because they would never expect to hear that. Now, they do know the name joinder, and they do know the words jurisdiction, and they do know what it means when you see you do not consent. You know, so they're good things to actually get into your head as well, if you're ever confronted in that way. And it's happening, unfortunately, in a lot of different like situations, because of the circumstances that we're living in at the moment. Even just walking for exercise down the street, there is a lot of people I know that get approached and say, why are you out your house? You know, and the thing to say to anyone questioning you at any time is, I'm under UCC 1-308, all rights reserved. You have no jurisdiction. I'm not contracting with you. I will not do commerce with you, and walk away. All the time, under any circumstances like that, I'm under UCC 1-308, all rights reserved. Okay. And you have no jurisdiction here. I will not contract with you. And that protects you from any contracts, because that's all it is a contract. You never, ever, ever give anyone your name. Okay. Especially if it's a policeman or anyone else, right? If they ever say, what is your name? As soon as you give them the name, you're contracted. You've accepted. You've contracted with them. And then you will have to pay a fine. And say, for instance, if you do that here now, right now, let's just say that you're in I think you're not allowed to be in more than a group of 2 to go for a walk. So, which is, how insane is that? But just say there was 3 of you and you got stopped, and you haven't said that, and they say, what is your name? And you give your name, you're under contract. You can't then later on try and argue it. It doesn't matter. And if you say, I'm not paying the fine, you get a £200 fine straight away. That's what it is, £200 fine, which I'll explain how they work that in a second. But then if you say, I'm not going to pay it, I'm going to court, the court will say it as a contract. Now, you can say anything you want in the whole world for hours and hours and hours. They know you've been under contract, and you'll either pay the fine or go to jail, because you made the contract. That is how powerful the UCC is, but it's also powerful to protect. There is a remedy. Okay, that's what we'll call it, the remedy. So how the remedy came about, when this first happened, let's talk about it. It rolled out right across from Rome to London, right across to the United States. And when it hit the United States, it was in 1938. And it was under Roosevelt, and they bankrupted the country, so that the government was bankrupt, the same as all the other governments that they were controlling. So it rolled west, if you want to call it that, and they bankrupted all the governments until they got to the United States, which is the apple in their eye, by the way. Okay, that is their major prize, is the United States. I think because they had the cheek of setting it up as a free country with a constitution, and that really annoyed them. So they destroyed the constitution and they bankrupted the nation under Roosevelt. But he gave you what they call like a get out clause, if you want to call it that. Okay, a remedy, and the remedy is by claiming back your trust, claiming back your capitalized name, your fiction, legal fiction. So but he just didn't tell you. He didn't tell you could do that, but he made sure that there was a remedy there. So as long as they provide a remedy, then they cannot be prosecuted for fraud. Again, it's the legal stipulations. They can't just fraudulently charge you money. They can't just fraudulently take all your money. They can, as long as they have a remedy. And if you find out the remedy, then they're right. Okay, fair enough, not a problem. But if you don't find out the remedy and you don't argue against them, then your silence is acquiescence, and you accept the contract. And because you contracted, then you will pay tax, and because you're contracted, you will pay a fine, and everything else that they can imagine that they can take off you. It's all just commerce, just business, and that's the way that they see it. It's just business. They're going to take as much money off you as possible. They need you on a satanic level. They need you to be as poor as possible and as miserable as possible, and then your vibration stays low. And if your vibration stays low, then they can continue to keep this pantomime, this matrix going, right? By all of their satanic practices. And that's really, truly where it boils down to. It is all satanic. I know that's going off in a different way, but the truth is that's how it's actually created. And it was created for not just finance reasons, but for satanic reasons as well. Are you with me so far?
Yeah, we're still here, just kind of blown away.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Peter, if you want to make me host again, do you have more stuff to share on the screen? Just so I can DJ the
No, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, yeah, if you go back to participants, if you click on that button
Right.
and then hit more next to my name and say make host. That way I can switch between the three of us and just primary you. Do you see that?
So if I click participants, oh, there, right, I see. So what do I do?
Click more next to my name.
Next to your name,
Uh-huh,
and it'll say make host.
correct.
There, is that it?
Beautiful, yeah.
There we
So
go.
just to
That's
bring us
better.
all back on the screen. There we go.
There you go. Learn something new every day, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, Marie, you go
So
ahead.
can I just chime in here? I just want to kind of summarize for myself and for all of the people with us today. I just want to welcome everyone here to this conversation. It's a really important one. It's not always easy to hear this stuff, but it's so powerful. It's like what Justin, you said earlier about taking responsibility, and what Peter's really showing us is how to take responsibility. If we don't take responsibility, then we can't change it. And I think that that's what we're all really wanting is the chance to change things. So when I hear all of this, there's a few things coming up for me, Peter. Like, for example, you go to, you write the letter and you pull back your UCC, whatever that is, one dash, whatever. How long do you wait until they respond to you is one question.
Usually quite quick. It could take a week to 2 weeks. As
Okay.
long as it's correct. It has to be 100% correct, or they'll
Okay.
send it back and they'll say it's incorrect. And they'll not always even tell you why it's incorrect. So you've got to, that's why I'm saying I'll actually look at people's forms. I can just give them the link to the form. I do think the link, if I give them it, it's actually an editable form. So they can go in, even though it's got my details in, I think. If not, I'll send them a copy of it. But it is definitely editable, and you can just put your own details in. So as long as you copy it, because part of it, let me have a look. I'm going to read it. You have to put underneath, there's a statement that you have to put. So I'm not going to read out because it's too long-winded and there's a lot of numbers and acts and stuff like that in. It won't make any sense to you anyway. But underneath it, you have to put in debtor is a transmitting utility. You have to put those words in underneath. And if you haven't put them in underneath in the correct place, they'll send it back to you, say it's not correct. Or if they do accept it, it means you have to do the whole process again in 5 years. And then you have to keep doing it every 5 years. So you've got to try and remember that. You know, who can remember, oh, I've got to do that again in 5 years. And if you do it and you put those words in underneath, it means a transmitting utility that's forever, for as long as you're alive. And then you
Okay.
own that, you take control.
Okay, so we can get these links and we can put them in the show notes. So we get the links just so I get it. So then we fill out the paperwork. We would do it for me and Dani and for our children. We send it in. Let's say we do it perfectly because we got the Peter fairy dust and he just makes sure it's all perfect. And then they write us back, ideally in a couple of weeks, and they're like, okay, you're good to go. Something like that.
Yes.
Then what happens?
Then what you need to do is you need to copyright your name.
Okay, then we copyright our name.
Right. Now, again, I have
Then
a
we
form
go to
here.
in the contracts. After we copyright our name, we go to all of the contracts we've ever been. We ask to re-sign our contracts.
Well, you rescind all of your contracts.
Okay, rescind them just by
Rescind them.
saying. Or,
No, I have a form. Again, it's a different form.
okay.
Okay. Because you have to actually get also an affidavit. Okay, an affidavit of non-corporate status.
Okay.
So you're swearing. I mean, an affidavit is like, well, it's much more known, I think, in the United States than here. But an affidavit is you're swearing something is true, and that is the only form of truth. And you have to have it notarized.
Mm-hmm.
So on here, right, it's an affidavit of non-corporate status, dated this, I'm just going to read it out as it is, 25th day of December, in the year of our Lord, 2021. Affidavit of Peter Wilson, lawful flesh and blood man of God, not a creation of the country known as the United Kingdom. Now, you don't need to make notes on this. I can actually send you this form, and then it goes through statement by statement. Now, if you're signing an affidavit, you are an affiant. So say, for instance, affiant Peter Wilson, flesh and blood man of God, and competent to make this affidavit with personal knowledge of the information and facts obtained herein, in attesting to said facts in his authorized capacity. Basically saying, I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, and I swear this is true. Now, once you've got this, and I'll send it so that you can actually just replace all of my details with your details. And it's quite, I'll show you, it's quite long. You know, there's one page and there's another page exactly the same. All right. And then by order of, how I showed you, by order of, block capitals. So you're claiming it off for the actual legal fiction, by your name and your signature in red, an authorized representative, remember that. And then you have to, but you only sign it in front of a notary. And then once you've signed it in front of a notary, then you have to get them to sign it and seal it. You know what I mean by the seal? I mean, well, notaries are common in the United States, so, but last time I used one, it was actually a wax seal. They melted it on the paper and stamped it, but now I think a lot of them use a rubber stamp. Makes no difference. It's still sealed, signed and sealed in front of a notary. So you get your UCC1 and you send that off to the government. I'll give you the address to send off to. Then you get your affidavit of non-corporate status and you get that notarized. Once you've got that notarized, then you can make a lot of copies, okay? But obviously keep the notarized one extremely safe, you know, so it's not going to get wet or get burnt or anything like that, okay? And then you have to get the copyright. You have to copyright your name. Yeah. All right. Janine's just reminding me about the brown envelope. I'll explain that bit.
That's the only thing I know, a brown envelope.
So the copyright notice, this is when you're copyrighting your name. Again, I have the documents, all right? It's all there. It's quite a long one again, very long. And you're copyrighting your fiction, your legal fiction. So whenever you're writing your name, the legal fiction in capitals, then your name, high and lowercase, you also include the little C in the circle, the copyright notice, figure, whatever it's called, symbol. So this here, you don't have to send this one off. You don't have to get this notarized. You just have to make sure it's filled out correctly and that you copyright. Now, we used to do it, and we used to send it off to the newspapers and advertise that this was now copyrighted. You don't have to do that, but now, because they've started, you don't know that every single newspaper in the world is all owned by the same people. Even your local town newspaper, it's owned by the same people. You know, goes up and up and up and up. It's just like the mafia. They always pay it up, you know. So, and they've increased the prices to thousands to do this, just to advertise. The thing is, you have to put the whole letter in. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to do this. You have to put every word in the newspaper. So to do it, I'll give you the form. I'll put all the links in so everybody can get everything. But do it one thing at a time. Don't try and do everything. And then it's like, oh, I forgot. And then you send the affidavit off and get it notarized or something. Do it one step at a time. But once you've done the copyright, and you've done all it, and you've put all the copyright signs and all the names, and it tells them all that, you know, what you're going to do to people if they actually use your copyright without authorization. So you put it down as like $250,000 for every time that they use, that you will charge them every time that they use your name without authorization, which you're never going to authorize anyone to use your copyright. Okay. So when, and then this is when it starts to really get, you've got to get into your mind that you have split that you are now two separate entities. So when you ever get any letter that's got the capitals on, which would be a tax, a bill, anything like that, that is not you. It isn't you. They're not talking about you, right? You bleed, okay? You write your name. When you went to school, they never said, the reason why you sign it in red is because it has to be the opposite of what they want. Whenever you've went for a job, or whenever you filled a form in, passport form, any legal form, or even applying for a job, they always say you have to fill it in block capitals and in black. Why don't they say a blue pen? They say a black pen because then you were agreeing you were dead. Yeah? By writing your name in a black pen, the same reason why all of the judges in courts wear black robes, because it is satanic, and they all are stating you are dead. You are a dead man at sea from birth. That is what a SISTQV trust is. All right, a SISTQV trust that from a woman at sea. And if you sign it in black, you are agreeing, you've contracted without knowing it, you're dead. And you can only be your legal fiction because you are dead. So you sign it in red. Okay. Now, once you've done the copyright, okay, and you've got it, you can shrink it down, get it in tiny writing so you can hardly read it. So it goes onto a smaller page and you laminate it. Right now, you've got to keep copies of it as well, because you have to give it to people who are going to interfere with you. And everybody's going to want to interfere with you at one stage or other. Now, what you do is you have it written in there and you have it signed properly and you seal it in a brown envelope. Okay, it's weird, all these colors, but it has to be done. It has to be a brown envelope, and you seal it and you post it, mail it to yourself. Registered post. You have to sign for it, or whatever it is they do nowadays, where it gets stamped to say you've received it, and then you never open it, and you keep that again in a safe place. That is your copyright. That is 100% legal, the most powerful copyright in the world under the UCC, which is, again, the most powerful law in the world, no matter what anyone says. Okay? And that is copyright. And then you keep that in a brown envelope and you put it away safely. And the reason why it has to be brown is because that represents the earth. Okay? It represents the dirt. It represents the earth of the grave. All right, that is the copyright. You can't have it in a white envelope. It won't work. It will not be copyright. I didn't make the rules.
Wow.
Right?
I mean,
So,
these guys.
red pens, brown envelopes.
Yeah, these guys and their rituals. I mean, it's just everything consistent.
100%.
Did have one question from Colleen, as far as if you've changed your name, or if you've got married and changed your name, which name do you reclaim? Is it your birth name or your newly changed name?
If it's the birth certificate, are you talking about?
Yes.
If the birth certificate, because I know some people change their name on birth certificate, you can do both. Okay. Same what people do as well if they've got. I know people have had dual citizenship or something like that, or they were born in one country, so they've got registered in one country where they were born. He was born in France and he registered it in France, Pierre, but he's a US citizen, so he had two birth certificates. He did them both.
So just reclaim any name that any fiction, any capitalized form that you've ever been associated with, just copyright and claim all of those just to be safe.
This is the shocking thing, right? And it's I still find this really hard to believe, but it's just 100% true. If you look at your finances and you think, how the hell did they know that? You put your postcode down, which I'm going to have to tell you about your postcode, vitally important, okay? But they know who you are, okay? So everything goes to, you send off, when you do your UCC one, you're going to send it off to Washington, DC. right? In Mexico, you send it to Washington, D.C. Okay, Tennessee, you still send it to Washington, D.C. I'm sending mine, right? I'm going to send it to Washington, D.C. Right? Whoever, like, can't remember his name, and I was helping him. I said, I'm going to get you the address. It's Washington, D.C. So they all go through Washington, D.C. There's the three, don't you? The Vatican, London, the city of London, not the big city, the mile city, and Washington, D.C. That is the centers. That's the three centers that rule the world. Okay, so they know who you are. There's no mistaking. You put your, because on the UCC, right, if you've got a birth certificate, it's got the birth certificate number. Even that scruffy one I've got there, the number's still on there. And through that number, they'll know where I live, right? Well, actually, they might not. They will know. I've told them I live here now. But, you know, the only time they never knew where we lived was when we went to Spain, and we never told anyone where we lived or what we were doing. And we never declared anything. We didn't tell anybody where we were. We didn't get any phones attached or anything like that. But apart from then, all right, you tell them your birth certificate number, even if you've changed your name, and they know exactly who you are. They know exactly how much money they've made on your name, on your numbers, all right? And they're making money on your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, all right? And they even make it on your death certificate, okay? They just, whatever chance that they got, and they put them into bonds, and they get all these bonds, they get CUSIP numbers, like CUSIP, CUSIP numbers, and they're all going on the stock exchange.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Totally crazy. So if we have a number of names, we just do the birth certificate name.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can put your name on, all right? So you put your capitalized name, Marie Russell, if it's changed, but you still use the birth certificate number. Because, well, once I send the form off, and you can see the form, and you'll see the different places where to put things, and I'll explain why and how, because you also have to get a security agreement number, but it's made by the date and by your, there it is. So mine's like, mine starts off as PW. So yours, yeah, security number would start off MR, and then the date, and it finishes with SA, security agreement. So every single one of them is going to be different, but that is what you will be claiming now. But the birth certificate number, which you have to put underneath that, will be your birth certificate number, even if it's in a different name. Understand? Wow. Is that okay?
I think so. It's a lot.
I mean, I think it's a fascinating revelation of like, you know, just over an hour that you've given us, Peter, and thanks so much for this. And I just really appreciate your willingness to share this. And it's so much info, and it sounds like with the website, but also the steps to take to go places. It seems, and this is the thing, once you've dealt with the realm of law, it's so minutious details that they go by, and it's such a ritualistic way of living and being that, like you mentioned, you open the door, you're on the contract, and unknowingly you are that. And it's essentially, it seems that if we want to claim back what's legitimately ours, that's been taken from us as physical beings or perpetrated in our name and in our life, then we have to go under that playbook, as it were, for a little while. But I don't know if it's relevant right now, if there's some other questions or some other things you want to. But it's interesting to know how you came to this place yourself, because I think ultimately, like, this is all information, and it's, oh wow, I want to do this now. But it, like, at some point, if it comes to place right now, if it's something that you can tell, well, what made you come here, and how did you get here yourself? I mean, at what point made you like go, wait, what's going on, to make you investigate this, you know?
Yeah, well, going back a few, I still like teach martial arts now. We've got our own martial arts school now. My son's got his martial arts school in the town next to us. Okay, so like my background, right from the very first time I actually stepped into a boxing ring competitively fighting was in 1969. Okay. So like, and I've been in and out competitive, right, ever since that date. Okay. And that's all I've ever wanted to do. I went through school and it was all like competitive fighting in one way or another. Not always good, but that's the way it was. And like, you know, it's so like everything was okay for a while, competitive. And then when I was hitting like, I think 11 or 12, it was 1975 anyway. And it was like, you know, my brother died. It was like 2 days before Christmas, 1975. And like I had been obviously brought up with him. He was just a couple of years older than me. And it's been like sharing a bedroom with him my entire life. And it really had a massively, massively bad effect on me, which affected me for like, sometimes it still does. But, you know, until I met Janine, it was like completely screwed me up for years. Which maybe not the best person in the world. But I also had the martial arts side where I was helping get the discipline through that competitive edge and through fighting. So it was always, you know, agreed fighting. Wasn't going around beating people up in the streets and, hey, come here, you know, but it was that discipline on that way. So I joined the Royal Navy. Same thing there, was all discipline in there, served my time in there, served through war zones, left, you know, and when I come out, I was boxing all the time when I was in the Navy, boxing in the fleet championships. But then when we came out, and then I wanted to like do something where I could actually make a living doing what I love to do. Right. So I'd done a salesman job, which I was good at, but hated. And it always made me depressed and just talking to people and anything like that. I even worked on building sites, which I loved the physical side, not a problem at all, digging holes and everything like that. But it's like, you know, it's great. I like being fit, but I mean, there's got to be something better than this. So like, eventually it was like, I got the opportunity just to sort of like start teaching on a part-time basis. And from there, it was one day, it was how I met Janine. But one day this guy walked into, it was like a little sports hall, not even a sports hall. It was, we hired a room above a pub, a bar. You know, it was private. Nobody could get in except us. And anyway, as I was teaching, and this guy walked in, he said, I have a gym round the corner and I'm closing it down. You can take over the lease. And that was in 1994. So I went in and I opened up the gym. I had no money, I had nothing. So I opened up the gym. I had no equipment in it. It was, you know, but it was very, very rough. Okay. So, and at the same time, we'd entered into professional fighting as well. So I was fighting professionally. I was training Janine, who got into professional fighting. She won the world championship in kickboxing. I trained a lot more champions underneath me as well. I was on television myself, you know, on live on Sky TV. I was in France on TV, in England on TV. I was in Spain. And then it come up to the time that I had really bad hips through all of that work, and I had to stop fighting. And it was like a massive hitting like a wall, like, what am I going to do? You know? So we still had the gym, and I had been, obviously I was very well known at the time, right across like the country, and I knew a lot of people who were doing similar, and a lot of people that had changed it into what they called like a professional martial arts business, and they were making a lot of money. Hang on 2 seconds, I'm just going to plug it in. I've got my battery running down.
Yeah, so just to address a question real quick, I've seen people asking, you know, if Q and Trump and everyone is coming in to dismantle the system, why do we need to do things like this? And I just want to clarify that while Q and the Patriots and all of that is going on, and it's certainly opening the door for this kind of stuff to come out, how I see this playing out is it's only going to provide this information to get to us a lot more easily. But we are going to have to take the steps in order to reclaim our sovereignty and really do take responsibility of freeing ourselves. It's not going to be, we can't be relying on an external savior. That's the whole point of this. So the Q team and all of that, they are opening the door for this to be possible. They are opening the door for this information to get to us a lot more easily. But we truly have to take responsibility and take those steps, take those actions to say, no, I'm not allowing this to happen, and I'm never allowing this to happen ever, ever, ever again. So yeah, just wanted to say that.
And I think too, that's what's happening. I mean, that did happen already. Hugh did open the door. That's why this conversation is happening. Like, it's working. I think a lot of us want to just, and that was a little bit of the lingo, just like sit back and watch popcorn, but, be active too, do your thing. And it's happening. This was a portal. Hugh was a portal. I love what you're sharing. Yeah, I love what you're sharing, Peter. Go ahead and continue if you want.
Okay. So what I've done is I actually spoke to a few people who were running these schools. So we changed everything from being a fighting club to how to learn how to teach children. So we didn't really know how to do that. So I went over to America and learned from these people. And one of the guys who still is connected to us and actually is mentoring my son, because it's better to have someone else do your own family, and I learned from him. He had the biggest martial arts school in the whole world. He had over 1,300 students in one school. And the connections from him are fantastic. His name's Master Silva, Greg Silva. He's based in Florida right now. It was in Coral Springs, Florida, when I actually went to see him and visited the schools and the schools around there. And they taught us how to actually do the psychology of how to teach children, where it comes to like teaching them, manners and respect and building up like character and honesty, reliability, and how to be a responsible person so they can move through childhood and then into adulthood, rather than just, going around and being competitive. So it was more about like building character, and teaching life skills. So that's how we learned it. And then I went back to the UK. I'll always keep traveling back between the UK and the USA. And I set up the school like that, which had never been done before in my area. And it just boomed massively, was extremely successful. And from there, in the end, I think I had 4 schools around the northeast of England, 3 or 4 schools. And it was massively successful. And what I did, rather than spend money and, because I'd never had money before, through other people who were saying, we got to invest it, don't just go spending money. So we had invested it in property and set up a property business. So we had like over $1 million worth of property, including property in the US, which, and everything seemed fine. But then a lot of different things happened on 2007, 2008. There was the massive crash. Everybody was losing their jobs. Everything was going bad. And it hit me really bad, financially as well as mentally. And it was kind of closing me down, like mentally and emotionally. And it ended up, there was like 3 big sets of events that all piled in at the same time that was going to make the whole, we had to lose everything to save ourselves, if you know what I mean. So we lost all the property, even the house that we lived in. And I was just, from there, the circumstances look and say, like, well, how could this happen? How can you be successful, and like, you're driving a brand new BMW, you're living in a brand new house, beautiful house, you've got property all over England, in the United States. So you wanted to go and stay in Florida, a 5-bedroom house with a private pool. And then you've literally got nothing, and I thought there's how can it actually like be fair if somebody's worked so hard, when you see other people that don't seem to do anything and even float through life and never really put effort into it. Do you know what I mean? But I was just like, and from there I thought, well, I don't know. So I was always trying to look at common law and how it tied back to property law. And from there, it's like the same as they were talking about Q before. It's like going down the rabbit hole. So it's the same thing. And it was with the law, and it was with the common law, and it was with the UCC. And once you've gone down one lane, and a lot of people at the time were saying, like, protect yourself with common law. The more I studied it, though, the more I could see it's not working. You're getting to this one level, and there's something that's not protecting you in common law, and like nobody cares. And at the same time, when we went away to Spain. Then we were, sorry, I'm not staying here. We got made bankrupt, so we went to live in Spain. We literally got on the plane. We went to 2 places. Went to the first place, we didn't like it. Come back, right? And then a couple of weeks later, I went another place. We liked that one, which was in Magna. We said, well, we're going to stay here. So literally, we phoned somebody, we rented an apartment, and we had to fly back to collect what stuff, and then flew back again. And that was it. No planning. They're just like, boom, did it. And that was in June, I think, of 2007, you know. So we stayed there for a few years, and everything, again, was going great. But like, unfortunately for everybody else that was living in Spain at that time, it was very, very hard because of the crash that went across the whole world. But, you know, everyone that we were dealing with in our school, all of our students were running the same thing. You know, we had a full-time gym, part of a Norwegian college. It was fantastic. But the students, the parents ran a bar, they ran a restaurant, they ran some kind of hospitality or tourism business, and then they would suffer. So, and they wouldn't tell you that they were suffering, right, from pride or whatever it is. And I know a lot of them, the stories we heard later, they just got the keys of their bar or restaurant, went outside, locked the doors, posted the keys through the letterbox, and got on a flight home to England, and landed back in England with nothing. And, you know, so like literally you've got like 100, 150 students, everything's going fine in the gym. And literally the next month, half of them have gone home, and they won't tell you because they're embarrassed, or, you know, they just didn't want anyone to know their business, and they've gone. And it was going up and down, up and down. And it was getting harder and harder and harder. And it was just come to a point of like, I can't be bothered. This is not. And then Janine got ill. So she had to go back to England. So like I was stuck in Spain. Like she had to go back to England because we didn't have any medical cover. So if you're ill in Spain, you're ill, that's it. So she had to go back to England. So I was like on my own in Spain. You'd think, oh, it was fantastic, but you know, no, it's not. I was in a villa, but stuck in the middle of nowhere, looking after 5 dogs on my own and trying to run a business. You know, it's like, I'm going back, you know. And then the whole forest, right, for about, how far was it? About 100 mile? About 100 mile went on fire. The whole course went on fire for 100 mile. And then Janine had come back, and we were sitting, like, we had the car packed with our stuff, anything we could fit in. We got the dogs ready, you know, and we're like looking at it was like a big mountain, and the fire was coming down, getting closer, getting closer, getting closer. So we had it like in the car, you know, and the buckets of water were lying around everywhere just in case. But thought, luckily, and it was the wind changed and started blowing it back up the mountain, you know. And that was, it was just, if we hadn't got out at the right time, the fire could have blocked off both sides of the road, and we would have been stuck in the middle as well. So it was like, you know, when one thing happens, then another thing happens. I was like, we've got to go back. I've had enough. I'm going crazy here. So, and we did then. That was where we had the 4 dogs. We put them in the car, drove back. Yeah, we threw most of the stuff away that we had, were belongings, whatever clothes we could fit in, you know, and whatever, a couple of things like that, you know, and we just drove back from southern Spain, and no map, didn't know where we were going, you know, just driving up. I thought, well, I'm on southern Spain. If I look over there, there's the sea. So if I keep going that way, that means that this is north. So if I go up that way, I'm gonna eventually I have to reach England. That was the way that we actually did it, and drove up. And I just, even today, I think, how the hell did you actually do that? You know, and go up through there, and we had no money. We had enough money left then just for the fuel in the car. So like, you know, had 4 dogs. We're getting like a stick of bread like this and soft cheese, and dipping it and giving it to the dogs, and then taking some for myself and a bottle of water, and drove all the way back up. I still don't know how I actually managed to get up, like all the way through Spain, then through France, and then get to find out where the Channel Tunnel was. And then we had just enough money left to pay for the tunnel to come up back into England, and then drive up, which was another 8-hour drive from where the tunnel come out in England to get back to where we lived. Or not where we lived, because when we got there, we had nowhere to live either. We actually had to live in the car, and then we got into like stop in the spare room in our son's house. So that was an adventure and a half. So that's why I was thinking I'll have to find out how I ended up in this position of one day we've got £1 million worth of property, the next day you're living in a car.
What a story. So it's you've been through the process, you've been doing this yourself. And so once you get to the other side of this, if you are in fact on the other side of this, what does it look like then in terms of life? Like, do you travel with your passport? Do you buy property? I mean, do you access the funds? Do you get to use that money that's been used? I mean, I would love that. I'd have to just go buy a big plot of land and get this party started. So
see, that is the thing, you see, and this is where you have to, once you've claimed it, okay, and you have to make sure that you're brave, because again, we were talking just last night, and you know, what we've done is we cancel all of any sort of like bill payments or anything for any utilities. So when there's a bill comes, say for instance for the water, and they've got the bill written on the bill, and you just write in big letters approved, and then sign it as I had said to sign it in the red, and send it back to them, because it's already been paid for. Your trust has paid for it. They're just trying to double dip and take it back, you know. So then if you want to buy a house or a piece of land, okay, you can just go to the bank and tell them, right, I am using my trust to buy this piece of land, so I need you to give me the funds from my trust, it's my money, to buy that piece of land. Now, obviously, if you're talking to like a bank teller, you know, that's just sitting there, they're going to look blank. They're going to be like, what? You know, because no banks have got any money, you know, no banks have got any money inside of them. When you go and buy a house and you get a mortgage, okay, they don't lend any money from anywhere. So what happens is you go in and you apply for the mortgage, say like $200,000, and you fill all the forms in. What happens is when they put that through, they take that they don't lend it to you. They take that $200,000 out of your account, out of your trust, and they pay that mortgage off. They pay that property off immediately. And then the mortgage document that you think is you buying the house is a rental agreement. It's a tenancy, and they've put you on a tenancy for 25 years or whatever it would be. So, and that is how it is set up. Complete and utter fraud.
Have you experienced any success with buying property in this manner, or is this just what you've learned?
This is just something that I've just learned about the property. So this is our next experiment.
Great.
But you know, other people have. So you know, the thing is that it's your trust. These trusts that they set up without telling you, without like giving permission to make this contract, and then selling you, they sold you, has made them millions upon millions. So
it's,
you know,
it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot to take in, you know, and it's hard to sort of like get your head around it. But I mean, that is your money. Now you can't. I've never known anyone say, well, that 3 billion, right? That's mine. I want it in my bank account tomorrow. But, you know, there's people that have bought cars that way. There's people that are buying property that way. And hopefully next week, I'm going to have a form sent through to me. I haven't got it yet. And it'll be a way of actually taking your car, if it's in America, off. Is it the DMV? Mm-hmm. Something like that? Or the vehicle?
Yeah, DMV.
The licensing, right? Take it off. And once you've taken it off, you don't need a driving license. You only need a driving license if you're actually making money by driving. So if you are a taxi driver, you need a license. You know, if you're a delivery driver, you need a license. But if you're just driving to get from A to B, or you're going to shopping, or you're going to visit someone, you're traveling. You are not a driver. The definition of a driver on the UCC law, and you've got to use the UCC law, is someone engaged in commerce. It's something to do with cattle as well, but it's commerce, you know, and you're not there for commerce, so you do not need a license, even if you've got one. But what you can do is try and rescind your signature on your license, and then put UCC 1-308 on your signature, which breaks any contracts. So if they're trying to get you a ticket, for instance, you just tell them that I'm under UCC 1-308, all rights reserved. I'm making no contracts with you. You have no jurisdiction.
You don't show them anything? This is what you say. You get pulled over. I'm thinking like we live in Mexico, so it's a little bit of a different situation, or not. I mean,
well, it
there's
isn't.
so many
It's the
weird
truth.
laws and rules.
It
Okay.
isn't, is the truth.
So you
but
just say you.
the UCC is just as valid
So you
and just as strict in Mexico. I mean,
Wow.
you see, like I said, the policeman who's driving the car, he's not gonna know. But if they try, what can they do? They can only pass you up to the boss. You know, you move up to the next level, and they know. And all of the chief of police, they want the money, so they know what the UCC is. You know, they want their commission. And if they're trying to get commission by sending you to court for a fine, the judge won't get paid unless he gets that fine for that. He won't get his commission. But as soon as he sees that you're under UCC 1-308, he's going to know that he has no contract with you. And he can't call you into a court.
Yeah, and what you were saying earlier, if they do, I mean, if a police officer decides to take you, if they decide to arrest you or something like that, and they find out that you are under 1-308 and they have no contract with you, then that's kidnapping, which is criminally liable, and that's where it gets, you know, but it really, what, sorry?
Sue them.
Yeah, right, exactly, and then you can
Do
sue
you know
them.
what they'll do if they do that? Do you know what they'll write on the paper? They'll write your name in full capitals on the ticket, right? So say, for instance, you know, if it was a traffic violation, for instance, you've ran a red light, say, you know, which is only an act, it's not a law, remember that. But just say you did it, and just say the policeman said, I'm arresting you, and it's like, there's a different word, not kidnap, but it's the same thing. Anyway, abduction, all right? But it's also false imprisonment, and then you can sue them. And when he writes out that name, because he won't write, you know, your name in high lowercase, he's going to write it all capitals. So what has he just done? He's broken copyright law. So you can sue him then for copyright law. And I mean, as soon as even if it doesn't get that far, as soon as they find out, you know, they're never gonna like touch you ever again. Now, I have heard, right, that people call this diplomatic immunity, and you actually get put on a list of people not to detain or arrest in the United States, you know, because they know that you're under the UCC. And that you've actually taken your straw man, so they can't write a ticket out. They can't write like Justin Carpenter a high low case. They can't do that. It won't go in their computer. It doesn't fit. It doesn't work. The computer will kick it out and say it's false. So they have to put it on all high case, and they won't do that because then it's copyright laws and fraud. Because you can't do anything to you as an act. You are not a corporation. You are a living creature of God. So, you know, and this is why you need to make sure that you reclaim, so you control the straw man name, you control your legal fiction name. So you're not using common law. You're not trying to say you're a free man on the land or anything like, you know, this movement that they're trying to say I'm not under jurisdiction. They still are. They really are. They're under UCC jurisdiction, and they're going to get in jail or fined. But if you tell them and you state that's my copyright name, you're breaking my copyright. I am not a fiction, a legal fiction. I'm a living creature, a man of God, flesh and blood, as derived from the word of God. Under UCC 1-308, all rights reserved. You have no jurisdiction here. I do not take into acts. An act is only between one corporation, which is them, they're a corporation, and your strawman name, which is another corporation, but you are a living creature of God. So that is the difference. And the thing is, because it is so satanic, the way that it's set up is that they have to accept that part of it as well. Because, well, everything that it's so like all of the symbology, right? You've all been on a journey the same, last year, everything, and finding out, and talking with Charlie, and you find the symbology that it's just so crazy. But this is really so strict and so real to them. And it is all the same group of people that we're dealing with. It might, even though it's the policeman on the street, but he's trying to do his job under commerce to pass it up to the next level, right? Which is all Freemasonry, which passes it up to the next level until it gets up to the Vatican and the Queen. So, and it's the same. There's like what I was telling you on the conversation about why the Pope, if we ever find him again, right, has 3 crowns. It's from the 3 CQV trusts that they set. I had the first one, I can't remember the dates, I had a quick check on the dates, but the first one that they did, right, they actually took your body. They did the CQV trust and declared you dead at sea. They took your body. That was Boniface, Pope Boniface, a very evil creature. And then the second, and that was, they called it the crown. That's why their flag, they have 3 crowns. And on the popes, they're not wearing it anymore because it literally is 3 crowns joined together and it's too heavy. The second one, the crown, was when they took all of your land. So they took your body. The second crown, they took your land. So you were not allowed to own anything ever. The Vatican owned everything in the whole world, every single piece of land, which is why you have to have it in the brown envelope. Okay. And then on the third crown, which I think is the worst one, right, was when they introduced the baptism. And that's why you had Christopher Columbus, who went over to the Americas, and he slaughtered literally millions of people who would not convert to Christianity and be baptized, because if they didn't get baptized, they didn't have the right to their soul. And by the baptism, the third crown, they claimed your soul. So they claimed your body, they claimed your land, and then they claimed your soul. And if you check up on the 3 crowns of the Pope, and you'll see the pictures, and it's a big long thing like that. It's 3 crowns sitting on top. And then, like you say, the modern ones won't wear it because it hurts. It's huge, and that is, again, all the symbology. And with them, they were moving to the West, and that's why they were tied to all of the royal families, hence the crown, right? And the Queen of England. And then, like I say, when it was set up in the US and they didn't actually set it up under them, they were very unhappy. And that's why, with the Rothschilds, because they were in on it from the Napoleonic Wars, the Rothschilds, they actually smashed up the US Constitution and created Washington, D.C. as its state, a country in its own, to follow the City of London and the Vatican. But again, it is the satanic thing. And this is where we all know, by everything that we've learned about, the adrenochrome and the sacrifice, and it's still been going on, and all tied as well to Switzerland. I don't know if you've ever seen that statue in Switzerland. They've got this huge statue of this monster, and he's got a basket full of babies, and he's eating the babies. Why have you got a statue in the middle of your town like that? Who wants to see a statue like that?
That's the thing, is they still, even with this system, they still have to operate under, this UCC and common law. It still operate under God's law, and God's law has free will as absolute. And so the only way that they can do these kinds of things is if they show us and demonstrate to us, have some sort of layer within that to where it's clear, to where we're contractually obliging, by being silent about it. But if they provide enough information about it, then that's enough under their insane minds to say that, okay, well, we're allowing this to happen so that we can proceed and go forward. But yeah, that's just another example of that kind of putting it out in your face to say, hey, we told you, but you didn't say anything about it, so you agreed to it, kind of thing, which is just insanity.
which is what I was saying before, the silence. Your silence is acquiescence. If you don't complain and you don't tell them you're not part of it, then you've agreed to contract with it. It's unless you actually say.
Yeah. And that's what's so important for us to get. That's why these conversations are so important, even though they're challenging, but we've got to decide, because otherwise we're subscribed. That's what we're all saying, right? And that's what we're learning as we go. And so many of us just want to like wait for something to happen, when this is like, this is what we're doing. We're having these conversations so that we can continue to move our energy in this direction towards sovereignty. That's what this is about, because the worst of it is they're showing you what they're doing and we're all like, oh, it's not so bad. I'm just going to pay my tickets and stay home until they say I can go out again. I'm just going to pay whatever.
And wear one mask and then wear three, and and then, yeah.
I think what was really powerful too, Peter, was just that it's all about money. It's all about commerce. And they've got all of us acting like that too. Maybe not those of us who are in the chat and on this call, but like there's this whole money aspect to the way that we operate that's really sick and backwards. Like I just got a message before we got on this call, like, hey, where's my money? It's like, why do we talk to each other this way? And how did we get so programmed to be this way? I mean, and so this is what you're saying. I mean, this is going back, and the people that are still going to churches and thinking the Pope is a good guy. I mean, how many popes do we need in our history? I mean, if you look at any amount of history, you can see like, the majority of them were just plain evil. I mean, the Crusades themselves, killing so that you can get people to follow Christ. I mean, really, like common sense doesn't seem to be used anymore by the majority of humans. So, I mean, how many people in your estimation, Peter, have actually like gone through this process and are, I mean, at least we say 177 plus us 4. So there's 181 people in this moment in time having this conversation. But, how many people would you think are tuned into this and have a sense of what's happening?
Not many.
No.
The thing is, the woman that there's 2 or 3 different people that I know have done it. A couple of them in America, and but they're difficult to talk to unless you literally pay them fortunes. And they actually they'll do sort of like different forms. They'll allow you to help you with the form, but you have to pay a certain amount, then the next form a certain amount, and so on and so on. But I mean, I've had to pay a lot of money to learn it all. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that other people have done it free, but just some people are reasonable and some people aren't. But so when they're dealing with that amount of people, it's on a percentage basis, it's so minuscule, and that is why, because people get worried. So, but if I start to try and claim my form, then will they give me a hard time, and start to sort of like victimize me for trying to stand up for myself? They don't care, right? How many billions is it on the world planet? 57 billion or something like that. I can't remember now, but say like there's a couple of hundred that, like, say a couple of hundred on this call. Say that you've got like on the people that I'm dealing with on the other like call with BB, there's about 50, and together as a group we've got about 300. So say together, the 2 groups together, there's 500-600 at the most, So compared that to the billions, they don't care. That's why, that there is a form to fill in. They have to give the remedy. If they don't give the remedy, then their laws are broken. You see? So the remedy is there. They're just not going to tell you. Now, the reason why that Bibi becomes so, and she wants us to share, because she becomes so passionate, because they took everything from her and put her in prison. And, and she was, I've never done anything wrong with anyone in my life. I've never even had a parking ticket. How can it happen? So she studied and found out, just discovered, and now and again, the judges now and again, like, let's just say they throw a bone, to give you a little inkling, and once, you find out a little bit, you can push further and find out more, because all of the judges in the US, I'm talking about the higher up judges, they all know, and they all get specially trained on the UCC because it's different to all the other laws that everyone else learns. The lawyers, the attorneys, solicitors, whatever you would call them, they don't know it. They just know that they are an officer of the court. So they do whatever they're told. So if you're getting into trouble, say for instance, this is it's, you know, you're getting a tax problem, which is completely illegal. I need it. Don't let me go away without telling you about the postcode and your house number. Don't let me go off, right? I need to tell you that. It's vitally, vitally important. But, you know, if you end up in court and you get an attorney to help you, his job is to make sure you pay. He gets, even though you pay him, his job is, he's part of the court system. It's his job to make sure you pay. And the judge, they're not a judge, they're a business person, and it's not a court, it's a business center. And it's there for commerce to take money from you. You're the money source.
Yeah.
And every single court is another private corporation, every single one. And the judges, I can't remember how many judges it was that Donald Trump had just installed, but he installed something like about 200 judges over the last 4 years. And they all get sent to Reno. Can't remember the other one. There's 2 places they get sent to, and that is where they learn the UCC on that law. So like the books, I think I might have left it upstairs when I ran down, but like you know, there's like they get smaller and smaller as they get better at writing them, but you know, it's still massive, and they have to learn how, and it's all commerce, you know, and you were treated as ships, because it's all admiralty law, you know, but they changed the name, and they're not allowed to call it admiralty law because there is no admiralty contracts. So they have to kid you again and trick you, and they call it statutory legislation. So whenever there's an act, and so it's the Road Traffic Act, blah 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 blah, it's a statute under, you know, that's statute legislator, and it can only deal with a corporation. So when this, for instance, like, you know, get stopped for a speeding ticket, and they're writing your name, and they'll write it in full capitals because they can't deal with you. You're a living creature of God, and they can't deal with a living creature of God. So they turn you into a corporation, even on the ticket. So, you know, and that's what you've got to know. And that's, you've got to know that you can't do that. You've got no jurisdiction. That's not me. You know, that name you've written there, that's not me. I am a living creature of God, flesh and blood. And they're not like getting told that, and they'll argue and everything, but you've got no jurisdiction. I'm under UCC 1-308, all rights reserved. I'm a living creature of God. I'm not a corporation. You are a corporation, and you can only deal with a corporation. So that's corporation. You can deal with that corporation. You can't deal with me. Got no jurisdiction. And then just say, well, you know, and if they argue, you say, well, I want to get your supervisor, or here you say, I want the duty inspector, because the inspectors, they'll know, and they'll know they need commerce, because all the policemen are all targeted, just like a salesman. You know, it's their job to bring in revenue, and if they're not bringing in revenue, you know, they're going to get into trouble. They're not there to save anyone or you know, stop a crime, you know, uphold the law. Woof. No, nothing like that. It's to make sure they take money. That's all it's about. But, you know, with what I'm saying about like your postcode, if you look on the form, you might not be able to see it, but I'll see if you can put this to camera. You might just be able to see here where my finger is. Where is it? There. Right. Can you see the postcode?
Yeah. Yeah, we can see that.
Can you see that it's in brackets?
127JJ.
Yeah. I don't know what, just are the numbers they put in. But you see it's in brackets on either side. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Square brackets. That means it doesn't exist on the paper. Okay? So whenever you're told that you have to put your address in on your postcode, you put it in them square brackets, and then by the UCC laws, it doesn't exist on paper. If it exists on paper, you've declared your home a military base. okay? And because it's a military base, then you write, say for instance, like, you know, our street, we're number 5. But if you put 5, the number 5 on your door or on your wall or on your mailbox or anything like that, you're admitting it is a military installation. And if it's a military installation, they can tax you. So you need to have to stay out of the military, right? Because you're not military. So when you go to court, it's a military court. That's why they have the gold rim around the flag. So on your address, on the postal code or zip code, you call it, whatever it is, brackets, square brackets, not the round ones or the squiggly ones, right? Them square brackets, and you put your postcode in. And that means by the UCC, it's not on the paper. And if it's not on the paper, then you're not declaring that you're a military base. And on your house, right, if it's say our number 5, we haven't got the number on, all right, we've got it. Has to be written. All right, it has to be written. If you put the number on, you're admitting it's a military base.
Wow.
This is under the UCC laws. This is how weird and how strict this is. And that is how they'll tax you. And because there is no law either in England or in the United States, well, in fact, Mexico, right? There is no law written anywhere that you can find. And you can ask them, can you show me the law that says I must pay tax? You're not allowed to pay tax on your sweat equity. Or you shouldn't be paying tax on your sweat equity. That is a law of God, you know. So what they do is, right, when they send you your tax letter and they say you owe money, it's going to be in capitalized. So they're not talking to you, they're talking to the corporation, right? So make sure that you send it back and you correct them and say, you know, I own that corporation. That's copyright law. You can't use that. If they've wrote your postcode out, you say incorrect postcode and tell them how to write the postcode. And they'll also tell you that it's your residence. Remember that word, residence. It is not a residence. A residence on their terms means a place of business. So when they're calling it, when they're telling you, you have a residence with a postcode and a number, right? It's a military base that is a place of business, and they're going to tax you. They're allowed to tax you. When it's your home, you know, when you've went out somewhere, you've went out with the kids, you finished at the park, and now you went swimming, been to the beach, and you don't say, oh, I'm going back to the residence. You know, you don't say, oh, let's go back to house. You know, you say, I'll go home. You know, I'm going home. So you've got to make sure that you state to them when they say your residence, and they will, that's the only way they do it. Doesn't matter if it's the IRS or the HMRC, and they'll write this, your residence is, right? And you've got to correct them. Say, this is not a residence. This is my home. They can't tax a home, and they can't tax your sweat equity. That again, it's their laws, it's not your laws, it's their laws. You're using their laws.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, this just goes back to you know, the biblical reference of Jesus walking on the waters, and it all came from Jesus having that faith and that knowledge, that understanding, that gnosis, and this is what you're providing, is that knowledge. And so when we can integrate that, then we have that faith and understanding that God's law reigns supreme. And by stepping within this knowledge and using it and standing proudly within it, and not allowing anyone to come in between you and your recognition that you are a child of God, then truly you are so powerful, and nothing can stand up to that. But we have to get to this point where we're not acting, I'm not absorbing this as information. I'm taking this in as knowledge. I'm truly integrating it to the point where I know it in the very core of my being. So that's, just wanted to say that, because it does come down to all of this. We have to know what to say, and we have to have confidence. We have to have absolute confidence and knowledge that we are children of God, and nothing can stand up to that. So yeah, again, thank you for all that you're providing. I think we were gonna, I don't know if you have anything, anything button up to your schedule, Peter, or how much longer you wanted to go. We can go for a bit longer.
Totally fine. That's why I said tonight I can go on. It's not a problem. So any questions that you've got, or anything else that you think that you want to ask? I think I've covered most of what was on there, but anything that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're up for it, I think we'd love to get you back on and do more of these, because I think it'd be a powerful sort of series. I know we've had a lot of questions in the chat about just going over the paperwork. I think Peter's going to get it pretty clear on his website as far as the steps to do and how to fill out everything and in what order. Is that correct, Peter? You're going to get that set up? Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I've just literally today bought the what do you call it? The domain name. Which I have it written down somewhere, and I've also got it on it. But I'll let you know it, and the email. I've tied an email address to it as well, so it like all ties in and makes sense. And I'll make sure that on the website there'll be like it'll be a very basic website, and so they can download a link. But because of that, they can email it to me, and any questions, email it and ask about, because you have to make sure you get it right. What you don't want to do is send it off and get it sent back, especially like there's two parts of it. There's your UCC 1 itself, plus the addendum, which you put property on, and then which bits to put, like the debtor's name and the next debtor's name for your children. Okay, so say like Dani and Marie do 2 forms, all right, and you're like one each. You can do one together, right, but you do better off doing one each and then having your children put underneath as well, right, because it takes up the space, all right. But the email will be on there, the links will be on there where to send them off to Washington DC, and we can go backwards and forwards once I get it set up, which Friday, so I'll do it over the weekend, and I'll make sure that the information's there and we can go back and forward. But also, we could definitely come on again and do a lot more talking about the actual the legal side. What we were asking quite a lot about what would happen if you ever went to court, and how to enter court, and what not to do and what not to say, where not to go, because you can actually easily your own game, because once you go into a court situation or a scenario, the judge in there, okay, they are the trustee of your trust then, which means they're responsible for any fine. So what they have to do is they have to trick you to swap places with them, so that you become the trustee. And that's why the judges, when you see sometimes when they get really angry when you won't admit that you are Peter Wilson, so I don't understand, because they're not saying high-lower case, they're saying corporation. And so you got to make sure that you don't admit to that, and I don't understand, and then ask them and try and find out who they all are as well, because you need to make sure that, because the clerk of the court will have appointed them and say, have you appointed them as the trustee? Is the judge there, is he the trustee of my trust? And that'll scare the hell out of them, because they'll know then that you understand, and that you've got the knowledge, and that they're trying to dip into your trust and take money. And not only will they take money out of your trust, you pay, like they'll take, say, $500 fine. They'll take the $500 out of your trust and $500 off you, and then they get commission on both sets.
Wow.
Which is the same with a speeding ticket, which is the same as the mortgage. So the what you did ask, well, whoever asked, was about like the land and the mineral rights. You were talking about mineral rights, you know, on the land in that you have, Dani.
So basically, yeah, I mean, this is just an extra question, but I don't think it's necessarily that relevant right now. But it's known that if you say have property, or you have a house and you got land, then you got rights to about this much, like literally, and then beneath that it belongs to somebody else. So you're, you know, asserting, do I have mineral rights too? So for all you know, you might have be sitting on the, like a silver mine, and to exploit that, or water rights to that, you know, that those sort of things. And I mean, again, it's walking into you know, Alice in Wonderland, and understanding how that world operates, which is the world of legalese. And then from what you're divulging is pretty much all under the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC. So it seems that we just, you know, I've been seeing a bunch of videos around, funnily on YouTube, of, you know, sovereign citizens, particularly in the US, like in court, and like essentially the ones that are around, they are like, okay, they're just getting put down by a judge, or by the clerk, or by the basically a sheriff's assistant that might be in the court. And, you know, they generally, it ends up in being a kind of a confrontational situation. So I think, you know, we are all sensing that we're being taken for a ride. And then now there's the emergence of people actually being on the path of claiming their sovereignty back in all form, or steps by steps. And, you know, clearly this is like a huge deal, because, you know, from the birth certificate aspect, I mean, if we literally say, okay, I want all of the money that you made off me back, they don't have it because it's fiat based anyway. So you could, you know, in like a scenario of that, you could potentially sink the whole financial system that the world is based on that. If everybody wants to go in and say, I want my money now based out of this, they have to give it back, because that's the law they're abiding by, correct? I mean, in theory, and they abide by this practice anyway, because that's how they go. It's fully controlled and systemized and ritualistic too. So
everything's ritual.
And in a way, what Justin was saying, the embodiment part of it, and I think this whole awakening that we are collectively into, it's also about recognizing the demons that are within us, and to a certain extent, we're all trying to extricate ourselves from it. But it's embodying that part of knowing that, okay, when I react in this sort of way, that's what's going on. And I think this is part of the journey somehow to regain full sovereignty. Is we have to go and become that, which is what we're trying to liberate ourselves from, and completely embody it, and then take it to the next level. And it's so interesting what Marie mentioned, that how much of all of our existence is being conditioned by this whole setup, all of our human existence. What can I get out of you? Nice to meet you. What do you do, and what can I get out of you? That's pretty much how we've been programmed to be. What can I get out of you? Instinctively, privately, or, you know, it might be like, oh, okay, I like you. What, you know, how can we be together? Instead of just sharing everything in community, which is, I think, what everybody in this chat wants to do. Everybody that's being in this awakening path wants to do is like, how can we just like be like children again, where you see little children, they're sharing things together. And they just help each other instinctively without any conditioning. And once we go into this hamster wheel, it's all about conditioned. Everything is conditioned. And yeah, like you had to go through being successful and then going bankrupt, living in a car, being in a business relationship, and then people turning around and going, well, I want my money back, because that's how we relate to each other. That's really, it's just really sad. It's really sad.
We're learning how to be leaders and how to show people how this is done, and it's one step at a time. I wonder if we can spend a few moments on Nasara. There's been a couple questions about that in the chat too, and how this relates to anything. And then maybe we can wrap up the show and do a follow-up, because this is such rich content, and it's gonna take us a minute to hear it again and again. And also I'd like to dive more into history and a few other things, but this has just been amazing. What do you think about this Nasara business? What are we?
Well, see, a few people have asked me that question, you know, and some people just say everything's going to be all right because Nasara will come along, Jasara will come along, we'll be getting given everything anyway. And I truly can't see that happening. Why are they just going to give you everything for nothing? You know, the whole thing, and even if it was coming down from sort of like, you know, Donald Trump, President Trump, he's going to want you to work to make sure that everything keeps working anyway. They're not just going to say, look, everyone go in the country. Here's like, you know, 10 pounds of gold for everybody. Go and do whatever you want to do and party away. You know, the whole world is going to collapse. Now, the way that I see this is that by claiming your true sovereignty, by claiming that you are a real child of God, you're not a corporation, and you actually take control of what they call your legal fiction, that in essence is Nasara. Now, then realizing that there is this equity fund that has been abused and used under your name, but now you have the rights and the access to it. So then you have to have the courage to be a child of God, to understand that you are sovereign, and then to be able to go and face these people and say, look, right, I want this piece of land. I'm going to buy this piece of land. I want you to arrange that CQV trust money, which is £200,000 to buy this plot of land in my bank, please. You know, and obviously they're going to fall off the chair and you say, right, come on, I'll help you up, and I'll go and see your boss and then ask them to do it. And then they fall off their chair. And then until you get to the boss who went, oh, how did he know? Well, we'll best get it sorted then, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know like how things work on banks in United States or Mexico, but in the United Kingdom, we pay things by what's called a direct debit. I don't know if it's similar. Now, we have also just found out through all this study that all of the direct debits are fraudulent. Okay. So everything that I have paid in my bank account since 2007 to now, whatever many years that is, every single thing that I've paid by direct debit has been taken from my account fraudulently. So I can get every single penny of that back. Now, Bibi, who was the woman that was in prison, she was who discovered this, and it's quite recent. And she went to her bank and said, you know, this is fraud. You've taken this money from my account. I need to have this money back. Now, she's told a lot of people, and a lot of people have done exactly the same over the last couple of years. And the response is, how do you know? That's their first response. How do you know?
Plain admission. It's plain.
Wow.
You know, so what it is, I mean, so I don't know if, I know that in America they do a lot of EFTs. I don't know if there's different laws, but on a direct debit, for them to go into your account, so say my tax bill my gas bill or electric bill, every month they go in and take a certain amount, so I don't actually get a big bill after 3 months. All right, that's all. It needs to have 3 signatures. It needs to have mine, it needs to have the gas company or the electric company, and it needs to have the bank. 3 wet signatures, and there isn't any.
Wow.
It's fraud. So all you have to do is tell them, well, look, this is fraud. So we've been working it out. I had to stop after a while. I was just getting a headache. You know, you're talking about like 50, 60,000 pounds, nearly $100,000. And I said, you got to give me it back. Now, like say Bibi did that, and they went, oh, you can't have it. She went, well, I'm going to go to the fraud department then. And they went, well, no, we'll help you. And within 72 hours, all of that money was in her account.
No. Wow. That's
For
amazing.
years and years and years. Because initially, eventually, when they did admit it, we think, okay, we'll do that, but we can only do 3 years. She went, no, and she's tiny, little woman. No, I want that money. I want it for the last whatever years, and you give me it all. And they went, well, hang on, we'll see what we can do. Hung up. Within 72 hours, every penny was in her account.
That is incredible. That's
See,
incredible.
what we got to remember is, right, if it was you in the bank, right, and I'm coming to see you and saying, I want that money back, I'm not taking it out of your bank account. I'm not taking it out of your wallet, right? It's out of my trust. It's coming out of my trust. That 10 billion pounds that you've been stealing and you've been, trading with all over the world belongs to me. So you replace it, you give me it back, what you took, because it's mine anyway. So they're not losing anything. Banks have no money in them, all they do is put zeros and ones in places. So, I mean, like when I was talking about when we lost all the property, there was a bank up here called the Northern Rock. And when everyone was panicking and everyone's saying that the properties going, like the banks are collapsing, there was people queuing outside every bank, Northern Rock Bank around this area in the north of England to take all the money out. And they shut the banks and got the police there because they haven't got any money. They haven't got any money. Wow. So they just had to get the police and shut the banks and get everyone to leave. So all these people are going, I want my money out of the bank. They haven't got any. So they say, I want the cash in my hand now. Doesn't exist.
No.
So, but like you can go in and say, transfer that from my trust. You've taken it all fraudulently, put it back into my account. Same as your mortgage payments. Get yourself off of that. You do your UCC form. Claim your right, claim sovereignty, be a child of God, all right? Then say, all that money back from my mortgage, I want it back. Because you took that from me fraudulently, and then you claim that back and get that put back in. Because it's being paid. It was paid straight away. So, but once you like feeling and being like a child of God and then acting with that authority, we just, from what Justin was saying before about Jesus walking on top of the water, is the allegory, of being above admiralty law. You're walking above the admiralty waters. You're not part of their law. Okay. And that's what he was talking about, walking on the water. Just the allegory of being above the admiralty law. And that's what we have to be. Being sovereign, being a child of God, and not let them come around.
Yeah, I see it as
It's
almost.
powerful.
Sorry, go ahead, Marie. Oh, I see it as kind of like people are asking about Nisara Dashara still, and what's happening with the awakening and Q and all this kind of stuff. So I see this as God, up here directing and sort of activating the Q team and the white hats who are kind of up higher up in the ranks to kind of start disseminating information. So it's trickling down. It's like beams of light coming down to the bottom, and we're down here on Earth. We're down here on Earth, and we're supposed to grow. We're supposed to receive this light and start to grow up to meet it. Yeah, I love it. I love your sweatshirt. And so if we don't take that responsibility, if we don't receive that light that's being sent down, if we don't receive this information and actually integrate it and start growing up and rising to meet it, then there's going to be room for someone to come in the middle. There's going to be room for these middlemen to come back in somewhere along the way, whether it's years or 10 years or 20 years or 50 years or however long it is, for them to come back in and insert themselves between, to sever those ties between us and God. So we can't expect to have everything be done for us, where all this trickles down and it reaches all the way down to the bottom and everything's just given to us and that's it, hunky dory, because that's not how this works. We have to take ownership. We have to take responsibility, and that's why these steps are so important and so vital, that we acknowledge how messed up the system was, how deep it actually went. We learn about it. We intake that knowledge. We integrate it and take those actions, take those right actions, and step out off the boat, step off the boat onto the water with that faith and that knowing, and truly own that, truly step into that. And that's what's so important about this. And that's why I see how beautiful it is that Peter's taking that step, and what a fitting name that your name is Peter too, and you're taking that your foot off the boat. um, but that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to do. We're here to take ownership and say, I'm ready to step off the boat. And it's going to be scary. It might be daunting. There's going to be moments where I don't know exactly what to do, but as long as I know that I am a child of God, as long as I know that I have that as birthright, no one can take that away, then there's literally nothing that any of these demons can do to step in between you and that. But we do have to own ourselves with the knowledge. We do have to really get clear on what is that knowledge, and it will probably get easier the more of us that start to do this, the more of us that it's like a ripple effect, and the more of us that begin this process, the easier it will become for all of us. But if we want to step forward as the leaders of this movement, if we want to step forward as the guides for others to do this, then we have to really take ownership and be the brave ones to take that first step and show the way. Otherwise, it's going to either take a lot longer, or we might not ever get there at all. And so that's, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Mhm.
I think that's really beautifully summed up, Justin. And Peter, you so much put it in there. It's like embody yourself as a child of God, literally. And I'll speak for myself too. It's releasing a lot of the old patterns, and particularly the mindset. But the mindset is not going to suffice. It's got to come really, I sense for myself, a full embodied experience, and really seeing it to the next place. Because as much as I sense that I might have to sink a little, dip a little bit into their construct, but also coming from a place of empowerment too. And yeah, like you said, it's going to take a lot of courage, but particularly faith. I can see as being really faithful. And with what we are at right now, I sense that, there's a lot of declaration, but also a lot of questions. And again, Peter mentioned that with the question that we had put initially, that it will take more than one show. And I'm trusting that we can work out a way where we can maybe put in the show notes like a link so that we can have a form. And if all of us that are in the chat want to put questions for our next show, and sort of go from there, to make it really like a full experience of a movement, as opposed to getting trickle down information from a few people who are leading or facilitating a video conference of this sort. So, I think maybe that could be a way of sort of summing up the beginning of this huge Pandora's box. I would also, if you guys are in the chat and haven't seen this, an incredible conversation or recorded video from Santos Bonacci called "The Vatican Owns Your Soul," and literally what Peter referred to around how to not necessarily all how to, but certainly the roles that occur in a court of law, and particularly like making the judge being the trustee of one's straw man's trust. And it was just fascinating, but particularly just really saddening. And I guess it's all of this information, we get it shown to us, it's unbelievable, then we get mad, then we get sad, then we introspect, and then we go to the next step. And it's really an opportunity to be emboldened and supportive of all of each other, and just like go, okay, what do we do now? So I'm going to try and see if we can work out a way of inserting a link in the show notes and putting a form, and then people ask questions, then we can put forward a next show. And Peter, thanks so much for your work, and look forward to really having your site live so we can update it on these notes that we put on after the show. And I don't know if you or Justin want to add on to this.
Sorry, Marie, did you have something?
Go ahead. I'll go last.
Okay. Yeah, Peter, I just wanted to, again, just thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. You truly embody that service to others orientation, and it shows in so many ways. You wear your heart And just want to thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And just on that note, you know, I know this takes a lot of work and this takes a lot of time and effort. So with your website, and if we want to put any supplemental ways that people can show support to you directly, or support your schools, or anything of that nature, please let us know, and we'll make sure to include those in the show notes. And yeah, just I guess, do you have anything to say in that regard now, or if not, we can hold off until next time.
Well, what I will do is I would like to take a bit of time to sort of make sure it looks okay, the site, so that I can put the links in. I mean, I'll put like a contribution link in as well. If people want to contribute, then that would be great. You know, I'm not going to put prices on anything or anything like that. You know, I want to help people. It's a bad time for everybody, you know, and so like I'll help people as much as I can. But I've seen other people do it. I don't know how to do it, but a contribution button. I'll sort something, and I'll let you know all the links and that, you know, and hopefully we'll get the next show organized, do it again and cover more information, and then go over questions, because it's the type of information, unfortunately, by giving them some information like this, that creates 100 questions, you know, and it's like, oh no, what has he just said? You know, so, you know, and I have no problem in trying to help as much as I can. If there's something I don't understand from the question, you know, I'm pretty sure I can find it out, you know, and just take everything one step at a time. But the good thing is, from obviously the type of people that we've got on the show, there, knowing the people that support and follow, you know, I think you'll find from there, going under, you know, a very godly way, that everybody will be there as a support to each other. Even if, you know, from that group are all going to be there for each other, all as children of God, and helping each other. And it's going to help me feel that way as well anyway.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and I can help you. I've used Buy Me a Coffee as a platform before for contributions, and it's pretty simple and straightforward. But I can point you to that, and we can get you something set up.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, friends. Wow, that was so amazing. Peter, thank you. You know, it's really important that we have people like you on this journey, just solid, grounded, kind. You know, nowadays it's hard to know who to trust. So it's wonderful that we can kind of have these deeper conversations and know that we're safe. And because these are big things, we're turning away from an entire matrix, and there's so many threads. We thought we pulled a couple, and then we just keep pulling and pulling, and the whole thing's coming undone. So thank you for this time. And I'm really looking forward to our next show. That's it. Hi to Janine. Thank you, Janine, for sharing Peter. And thank you for going through this process and, you know, everything you've been through. And I think that that's what this is about. It's using your life as an example, using your experiences. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, using your experiences to move in the right direction. That's what we're all learning to do. It's very empowering. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah,
Huge.
wow. I'm so excited about all that's going to happen for all of us, and all that is happening for all of us. Thank you guys for the chat. You've been so awesome today. 190 people right now. It's fantastic.
Yeah, truly. Yeah, and we'll keep everyone posted when Peter's got the website up and ready, and we'll get them in the show notes. We'll probably make posts about it, and then we'll make sure everyone's informed about the next iteration of this show moving forward. But I'm really excited to keep diving into it. It's lighting me up like no other. So yeah, thank you.
And
Thanks
also,
again, everybody.
Charlie, we got Charlie in the chat. Hi, Charlie. We love you. Thanks for bringing us all.
Yeah.
And there go. You guys are live this afternoon. So Charlie's going to be on live, and he's got a lot of this info too. So if you guys have more questions and want to keep going at it this afternoon, you guys go on at what time, Justin?
2 p.m. 2 p.m. Central. So in an hour and a half and 90 minutes, we're going to be on a Q&A live show. And the first half is going to be dedicated to all the email questions that I've received, as many as we can get through. And then we'll jump into live chat questions for the second hour. So make sure to join us live if you got any more questions.
This is on your channel, correct?
Yeah, this will be on my channel, Wandering Toward Truth.
Super.
Perfect. And Peter, if we don't, let's catch you in the next week or 2 weeks for sure. Let's circle back around, because it's clear that people really love this information, and it's empowering. So thanks for that.
No problem.
Okay, have a great weekend, everybody.
All right.
Yeah.
Love
Have a
you
great
all.
weekend.
Thank you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
I can't leave.
He's not leaving the party.
Yeah.
All right. I just stopped the live stream.
Oh, did he leave?
Yeah, he did. Oh, well.
It's good.